they're greenlighting a whole bunch of like hate towards white men. You ask them, can you be racist towards white people? And if they immediately say, no, you can't, then anybody like that, you don't ever want to have like these people you don't want to work with. You don't want them as part of your movement.
Like Asmongold is like this conversation around video games and like quote unquote like forced diversity or DEI stuff in games. So I'm curious how you feel about that entire conversation. I guess the thing I wanted to talk about is young men. You know, I'm a young man. I'm a young white man. That's what they say anyway. I want to talk about what's going on there and why they voted so much for Trump. Because I find it really interesting the way that sort of young guys have. I mean, I'd assume that overall, guys in general are more prone to being conservative than women, but it seems like among young people, especially because it used to be the case, maybe I'm wrong here, but my understanding is it used to be the case, like that Winston Churchill quote. What does he say? He's like, if you're young and you're not liberal, you're heartless. And if you're old and not conservative, you're an idiot, right? That's what he says, I think.
Something like that.
It used to be the case that people who are young are liberal and people who are older are conservative. And there was this impression that I think a lot of the internet has informed people of, which is like this idea that all Zoomers are like, you know, basically libtards or whatever. But that doesn't seem to be the case. Overwhelmingly for young men, they seem to be very right leaning. And even I, you know, when I like hang out with my friends and stuff in real life, when I go to bars and stuff, which is not that often, but I have sometimes, I overall find that young guys are a lot more prone to supporting Trump. And I guess I'm curious why you think that is.
I feel like there's a bunch of different things going on. I think in one sense, I think for a long time, the left has just kind of like ignored men and white people, which is kind of cringe because then you basically cede all of that ground to like Jordan Peterson.
Which is like a huge amount of the voter base, right?
Yeah. White men are a pretty big voter base. Yeah, not good. So I think that was an issue. I think a second issue is you probably are a bit more liberal when you're in college and way more young women go to college, I think now than way more young men. It's like 2-1 or more now. So
I the thing is, I would think that would be true, but if you watch a lot of like some of the biggest influencers of my generation, like guys that people in my gen were watching in high school, are Nelk, and they are like kind of like YouTube prankster guys, but cornerstone of their entire thing is that they're frat guys, like they're you know, college culture, partying, drinking, whatever, fucking girls.
Sure, but like frat guys, that's like a minority of college kids, right? Like most people aren't frat party people.
That's true, but a lot of guys at these like larger schools, like I don't know, University of Miami, you know, big party schools, a lot of the guys there seem to be leaning conservative, which in the past I don't think was the case, right?
I don't know. Well, when you say a lot of guys, I would have to say the polling data. I'm not aware of that if that's true. But my understanding is like education and everything tends to make people skew more liberal. So I'd be surprised if it could be. I haven't heard that before.
I guess, I mean, maybe it skews more liberal overall, but I would say that probably for this election, more young men are right wing than they have been in the past.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I see a lot of these videos, like She Went Ahead made one, like, why are young men moving right? I've seen a lot of other videos about it, and it is interesting to me. And I feel like a lot of this is kind of wrapped up in, I don't want to say incel culture because it's not exactly incel stuff, but how familiar are you with like looks maxing and that whole kind of world?
I've heard of that, yeah.
It's this idea that you can like improve your physical potential over time, and like, you know, through like working out, or I mean there's some other crazy stuff like steroids or jazzercise, or you know, mewing is a big one. Shout out to all the mewers in chat. That's a big one. But I feel like a lot of the comment sections I see and a lot of the conversation I do see around the looks maxing stuff, a lot of it is kind of this sense that I don't know that it's really hatred of women. It's more like guys feeling like it's over. Like there's a lot of young white dudes, even in my chat when I'll stream and stuff, who feel like it's over. And I'll say things like height doesn't really matter to girls within a certain deviation. Like I feel like if you're 5'7" and over, you're probably fine. If you're a guy, you're probably not going to have a lot of trouble dating. It's probably not going to be a problem. You know, you're multiple inches taller than the average woman. And women in general, I think, in my opinion, care much less about looks than guys do. I feel like they value, I don't know, personality or other qualities a lot more. But there is this impression that the only thing women care about is looks, is height. If you're not 6 foot, it's over. If you don't have a strong jawline, it's over. If you don't have a great hairline, it's over. And this is like a widespread kind of thing I see in YouTube comment sections. And it seems like a lot of young white dudes are moving right, and it's kind of wrapped up in that kind of thing. And I guess I've like managed to have conversations with my chat about how it's not over really, but I think a lot of the sort of like pushback to me as somebody who is like a YouTuber is like, well, you know, you're a YouTuber with money, right? Of course, like, you know, well, first of all, if I say like I haven't had any trouble with girls, they'll be like, that's lying, and whatever. But on top of that, it'll be like, well, you're just a rich YouTuber, so women just like you for your money. And I'm having a hard time. Um, I guess it just is. Young guys seem so lost right now. I don't know if they have to be though. I don't know if this is like an internet thing, but like I see dudes who are like 22 and they're like, I'm giving up on relationships forever, and it's like, what? You're 22 years old. Like you've had like one relationship that went poorly, and then you watch some YouTube videos that told you it's over, and now to you it's over. And I think a lot of these guys are kind of the conservative voter base, and I guess I'm not really interested in swaying their vote so much as I am in understanding them and trying to get to the bottom of what's happening and why so many young dudes feel like it's so over right now. I want to, understand it. I get it to an extent, but I don't fully grasp it. And
Yeah, I mean, I think part of it,
I think speaking to these people is important if you want to win the next election.
yeah, I think part of it is unfortunately all of these issues in society now are so like multifaceted. There's not really any simple like singular answer. I think there's probably a couple things playing into it. One is, I'm going to lean on that other answer earlier, is that progressives decided they just didn't want to talk to white people or men anymore. I think, which is a huge problem.
Why? Why did they decide that?
There's a whole academic justification for it, but it's stupid and not worth going into.
Is it like some kind of sociology thing? I mean, I'm curious if you don't mind.
Well, sure. I mean, like basically the idea is white men in society have held the majority power, and so there needed to be explicit effort put into helping other groups catch up. And if men or white people were ever complaining about that, they were only ever complaining because they felt like they were losing ground to minorities because they were racist. So the idea is if you're sitting there talking to a white man, why would you do that when these people have society who's completely built for them, which was true. However, regardless of if that's true or not, the impression you're going to get after a while, if one side is saying constantly, we're not talking to you, we're not for you, we're talking to all these other minority people, and then on the back of that, they're greenlighting a whole bunch of like hate towards white men, which they did a ton, and they thought it was epic and funny. And some of it was epic and funny, but not when you're hypocritical or one-sided about it. I mean, over time, you build resentment. It's just like microaggressions or racism or anything else. If I sit there and I shit on black people all day and I make anti-black jokes and I call them racial slurs and I say that they're, built for slavery, whatever, over and over and over again, eventually black people are going to hate me. And I think that the white male demographic in the United States has probably felt those vibes from the left, especially progressives, for quite a while. And that's the thing that's just been.
When you say progressives, how do you like differentiate that from like the mainstream Democratic Party?
I think the mainstream Democrat is not anywhere near as plugged into like a lot of those social issues. I'm like
thinking, identity politics, whatever. DEI.
Yeah, I think that a lot of that stuff is super cheer-led by like people on college campuses who make up like the progressive wing of the Democratic Party. So electorally and legally, they have very little power, but culturally, they're like the dominating voice on the left.
Right. Yeah, I think that I think part of the problem when you say culturally, a lot of that is the like internet stuff, because the internet is, forming a lot of our culture now, obviously, and our culture informs the internet.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like a lot of that is like for years. I remember when I was growing up watching YouTube during like I know I actually was rewatching some old skeptic debates you had recently because I'm sick of your political shit. I want to see you have drama. Yes. I mean, it was political, but I was watching like the Tonkasaw debates and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And that guy was pretty funny. I kind of miss him, honestly. But a lot of the stuff that guys like that, like Andy Worski or Shoe on Head or Sargon of Akkad were pushing back on back then was like, you can say you can call the skeptic community cringe, and I would largely agree. But they were pushing back on some crazy stuff that some people were saying, like saying you can't be racist to white people, which is obviously untrue. But when you have a large, amount of people online saying shit like that, and these people are, funded by like what seems to be like, traditional media companies, or they have more professional setups like Anita Sarkeesian, people like that. Mm-hmm. And you have all these people saying you can't be racist to white people, or saying like, fuck, what were those BuzzFeed videos? Like 20 questions women have for white men. Like, obviously that kind of shit is going to really push, white men away when they feel like, you're calling them racist just because of the color of their skin, which is racist in and of itself. I think a lot of that stuff, like, unironically, I think that, so like for context, my dad is a pretty right-wing guy. He likes like Joe Rogan and stuff like that. And I notice he'll have takes that I was having when I was like 14 years old because I was watching YouTube, right? But a lot of this stuff that like was in the anti-SJW skeptic community back then has kind of made its way to mainstream, talking points for a lot of the right. And I mean, there's a reason why. It's because a lot of that shit was completely retarded that those people were saying. But that kind of stuff I think has really, really pushed white men away. And when it feels like, the Democratic Party doesn't represent them or care about them, and then you have all these like crazy leftists online who are saying shit like you can't be racist to white people, or you have like unironically Hassan, using racial slurs against white people frequently to demean them, saying shit like I mean, like reparations, stuff like that. I don't know how you feel about that, but I would probably feel like reparations are pretty retarded. Or like saying like, these people are just the descendants of slave owners. Like I'll even get shit like that in my comment section sometime. And even if I was descended from slave owners, the idea that I'm responsible for that in some way is insane. But on top of that, like I'm also just not descended from slave owners. My family came over after that. But there is this impression among or maybe not impression. There are these talking points that like white people should feel guilty for the actions of the past and things that happened in the past, for shit that these people aren't even responsible for. And I think it makes sense why it would push people away from that kind of side, even if, let's say, someone like Hassan is ultimately representative of a very small portion of the.
Yeah, I think I agree with all this. Right? I feel like this is essentially what I was saying before, right? Yeah, you can't say like fuck white people, fuck men over and over and over again, and then be surprised when that demographic turns away from you, like over the.
So what is the solution?
I think the issue is that the mainstream Democrats, like the problem is that all the Democrats that would say like this is cringe just don't talk about this stuff, right? You don't hear Biden or Gavin Newsom or any of the like larger Democratic figures. They just don't engage, or even Bernie Sanders. They just don't typically engage with any of this. It's like exclusively culture warrior stuff, which is predominantly young white progressives who are some of the craziest motherfuckers on the planet.
But culture warrior stuff seems like it's extremely important right now. No.
Like it is pretty important. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. But so, I mean, like people
part of talking points.
Yeah. So people have to start engaging with it on the left. Yeah. Better voices. Yeah. And then Democrats need to do a better job at excising a lot of these progressives from the party because they're not Democrats that don't even support the candidates. Like it's crazy that people that don't even support Biden are simultaneously bringing the party down at the same time. Like they need to be, the Democrats.
When you say progressives, you mean like leftist socialists or just like?
I mean, it's socialists and like people that are getting basically. Like a litmus test would be you ask them, can you be racist towards white people? And if they immediately say, no, you can't, then anybody like that, you don't ever want to have like these people you don't want to work with. You don't want them as part of your movement.
Right. Well, if they're kicked out of the movement, are you not afraid that, I mean, I don't know that all those people are voting for Kamala, but I assume some of them would rather vote for, like I saw some video from this guy, Ryan Beard, who is like a leftist guy. And he was like, regardless of how you feel about the Palestine issue, Kamala is slightly better on it than Trump, because Trump is obviously very pro-Israel and would probably like to mop the floor with Gaza. And on top of that, the outcomes for people in the United States are going to be, better, if Kamala gets elected, in his view, than it would be if Trump got elected. So I feel like
unbelievable, dude.
What?
Are both of these true? I'm sorry, we're coming right back to this. That okay. Matt fucking Gaetz, the cum goblin, and Tulsi Gabbard. Matt Gaetz is the attorney general, and Tulsi Gabbard is the DNI head. There's no shot this is real. Are both of these true?
Tulsi Gabbard is really hot, though. Think about
that. Unreal.
Do you think about it ever?
No.
Like how hot she is?
No.
She has like that anime like white streak in her hair. She's like a 40-year-old like alt girl. She probably likes My Chemical Romance. She's really hot. Just think about it.
Okay, sorry, go ahead. What were you? Sorry, where were we
at? Sorry.
Yeah, the left needs to get better at talking to this group of people. Yeah. And there's like a whole strategy apparatus thing that goes into that.
So how do you talk to that group of people without delving into like white identitarianism?
I mean, you can delve into it. Just be honest about it. Like people need to, and don't be soy as and yeah, that's what I would say. I don't know. I mean, it's easy to say.
But you say talk to these people. Like what does that look like in terms of like, okay, so the next Democratic candidate, they're giving some kind of speech and they're trying to include the white male voter base. Like, how do you do that? Because at this point, I don't think it's enough to just ignore the topic because the impression is already there. Like you already have the progressives in the party who have said.
I mean, it can be highlighting men. I mean, the problem is a lot of this stuff happens on the culture level. So politicians speaking aren't going to be a big part of it. But when politicians do speak, it could be something like highlighting men's suicidality, or could be something highlighting like men's lack of attainment in education, like things like this. Like, would be nice just to like give air to it. And then on the culture level, on the podcast level, and all this, yeah, the predominant voices on the left can't just be the crazy progressive people. Yeah.
Right. So, okay, so you push those people out of the party. You talked about the Democratic Party being like a big tent party and wanting to kind of change that. What does that look like, dude? Does that look like just like kicking out the progressives? Like, does it look like not talking about? Because I think, you know, whatever you think about trans issues, I think it's obvious that to the majority of Americans, it's not that big of a deal. Do you think that like not using those kind of like pro LGBT talking points is going to be a part of the Democratic Party now as well? Like,
No,
kind of
I think
going
you
back
can
to
do it.
almost
You
like a
just have to
Clinton
be,
thing?
you need to be chill, and you need to be positive. Like, you can be positive about these things, but somehow the left finds a way to like negatively like slant every single thing they talk about, so that like when you talk about accepting LGBT people or accepting like policies to help black or whatever, all of it feels like punishment. Like it, like even they talk about taxes like it's a punishment. I don't know. It's all of it is just like cringe. The way they talk about everything is like so self-loathing and self-hating, and yeah, that needs to stop.
Would you not say there's a lot of that on the right too, though?
No, never.
Like a lot of like victim complex stuff?
Yeah, but the victim complex is different because they victimize themselves, whereas on the left they victimize other people until you hate yourself because the other people are the victim.
Right. Okay, that's fair. As far as I think on top of that, another thing I was thinking about was I think a lot of the young guys out there who are I don't know, probably ages like 18 to maybe a little younger than that to like let's say like 30 around there. Like I think a lot of the audience probably watches Aswin Gold. A lot of these guys are obviously, a lot of the stuff they watch on YouTube, or just online in general is like, Joe Rogan or I guess like Patrick Bet David, at least probably a little bit older of an audience. And like a lot of these podcasters, and then you've got like, Alex Jones isn't that big right now, I think, obviously, but he was pretty big and he was like being on Joe Rogan and stuff like that. So like a lot of the kind of fringe elements of the right wing were being represented there. But regardless of that, the right, I think you talked about this with who was um the guy that Dan was like, you're like the handsome version of me. You guys were talking about talking with him about
Brian Tyler Cohen or
uh
whatever.
yeah, that guy. He seems cool.
Mm-hmm.
During that conversation, you guys were talking about like the right wing media apparatus and how clearly the left wing media apparatus has completely failed. Like it's all institutions. It's all like I don't know, CNN, MSNBC. And then online, you've got like you've got a few big channels. You got like David Pakman. You've got which he is like a traditional libtard as far as I know. Then you've got like Sam Cedar. He's more of like a progressive, right?
Yeah.
And then you've got like who else? I think there are very few. I feel like there are very few like huge, like culturally super noteworthy names that have a lot of like left wing guests on all the time and are really talking to these people. Versus on the right, it's huge. Like what the fuck is your plan for that? Are you just going to try to do it yourself? Like how
Yeah, I mean,
how does the left move
it's everything.
forward?
It's everything that I said before. You have to excise the progressives, and you have to build like a base of like center left Democrats that support the party. The issue is that the buy-in on the right is incredibly easy, and it's incredibly beneficial for the party. On the right, all they say is you need to have an undying support for Donald J. Trump, and as long as you got that, then you're good. And the entire right-wing media ecosystem is exactly like that. You cannot think of a single centrist podcast or a conservative podcast that didn't fully, unquestionably support Trump at every single stage of his candidacy. On the left, it feels like you've got your center left people, and then you've got your far left people. None of the far left people really supported the candidate. Some of them kind of halfingly did, but like after spending like a year or two calling them all like genociders or whatever. So like I think that's a huge issue that has to change. There has to be more support for the actual political party.
Right. So do you think there needs to be support for the political party from the people that already exist, or like what is going to be the
No, they
next
won't do it.
wave?
They have to be. I think that people need to be more fixated on like the health of the political party, as opposed to um, whatever the fuck is happening right now, where it's like cool to like shit on your
Just like
candidate.
infighting. Yeah.
I wouldn't call it infighting. I would just call it not supporting the party. Like, it's cool. Like, how many people besides me have you ever met a single other person who would say things like, hell yeah, I'm voting for Kamala, or absolutely I would vote for Biden, or I super support the Democratic Party? Like, these people don't exist online, right? It's pretty rare to find them. Like, if anybody was going to support it, it's like, oh, I guess maybe. And anybody that tells you they're undecided, all of them are voting for Trump. And then on the conservative side of things, like, every single person is like excitedly embracing Trump as president. So that's an issue. I think that's a
Right.
big issue that underlines a lot of stuff.
Now, when it comes to the young guy phenomenon, I think another part of the conversation that seems to be a big part of like Asmongold, his channel for example, is like this conversation around video games and like quote unquote like forced diversity or DEI stuff in games. And like I guess I'm curious how you feel about that entire conversation. Like, is that completely alien to you? Is it retarded? Like, what do you think?
I mean, again, it's one of those things that the Democrats just shouldn't, or the left shouldn't have abandoned. Like, there are really good arguments for like diversity and stuff. Like, there are good, awesome, cool, fun arguments for it. But again, they always make it sound like a fucking punishment. Like, you gotta have a fucking woman in your fucking video game. You gotta, and it's like, Jesus Christ. Like, it's like diversity is something to be suffered through rather than something to be celebrated for, because the United States is one of the most diverse countries on the planet, and we like greatly benefit from it. But yeah, the left is just really bad at highlighting these things in a positive way, and they just make it seem like it's something to be suffered through, which is really
Right.
negative. It makes everybody hate it so much.
I think a lot of the messaging too is like championing the merits of something without explaining why. Like, diversity is our greatest strength. Diversity is great. Diversity is amazing. But the question of like why is almost never answered from these people. And if you ask it, you're immediately brought back with like, well, you're a Nazi, and then that just creates these like sort of echo chambers of people online who are like, well, fuck those guys, and
Yeah.
it's hard to really blame them, right? But yeah, I was very surprised by how because I'm not like a huge Asmongold fan. I never watched him on Twitch, but I see his YouTube channel. I see he's doing very well, and I'll check sometimes on the comment section of his videos. I didn't realize how right wing his audience was, like very overtly right wing.
Oh yeah. Everybody that's like that centrist thing, but they know it. The content creators know it. You're flirting with and you're skirting the right wing audience. They know it. Asmongold knows it.
Is he a centrist?
Like, they say they're a centrist, but there's no way that you get an audience that big that's like 95%. Like, if I had to guess, Asmongold's audience probably voted for Trump 90%. And if you have an audience that's like that, I can't imagine you not being aware of it and not wanting to do something about it unless you agree with it. So,
Right. So what do you think is the deal with him then, as far as like, is he just kind of riding that wave and profiting from it and doesn't really give a shit? He's like nihilistic about it, or
I mean, I think
do
he
you think
probably
he's like secretly
genuinely,
more right wing?
no, I think he genuinely cares about the issues. It's just the things that the culture wars issues that I think that he kind of fixates on are ones that attract a lot of like right wing people. And he has those, I say right wing, but it's really just on these culture wars issues. But he's like a voice for those people, basically.
Right.
Especially on
Are
Twitch,
you,
given you have no other, who it's either him or Hassan, right?
right. Yeah. And I guess he is like, in terms of his messaging and stuff, he's far less extreme than Hassan, for the direction that he's in, I would say. But beyond that, what is your, because you had like a little, I don't know, schism drama with Asmongold. What is your plan going forward for that? Are you going to try to have a conversation with him? You guys talked about that? Like, what's going to happen there?
I think he intentionally doesn't ever want to have a conversation with me, which is fine. I'll probably exist. We just exist and we do our thing. I'll try to be less harsh maybe, but I just have to call out and be more aware of that, like the two sides are.
Did you try to reach out at all?
Yeah, I've like multiple times in the past, and it's just at this point, like if it hasn't happened, it's because he doesn't want to, which is fine. I'm like owed a conversation or anything, but like, yeah.
Okay, because every time I see him talk about you, he'll be like, I disagree with Destiny, but I have a great amount of respect for him, and I agree with this thing he said, and I agree with this.
Yeah, I'm aware.
So he seems to be like, I mean, somewhat receptive to like he's not like he's not like audience captured in my opinion, or like completely politically brain rotted. Like he probably would be willing to have a conversation. I guess maybe you'd have to really push for it, and also I don't know if he leaves his house almost ever, but I feel like that would probably be, if you were able to have a chat with him, really interesting. But I think part of the problem therein is so he's come up with really strong positions before, and then he'll get pushback for it, and then he goes on Hassan's stream, and Hassan like within like 5 minutes like bullies him out of that position.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm really curious if like that would be the same exact thing for you and him, where he like wouldn't provide a lot of pushback. Because Asmongold, I like him, but he seems to be somebody who, I think a lot of his appeal comes from the fact that he's more of like a quote unquote like layman. Like he's not super autistically researching these topics, which I think a lot of people just don't care about that. They just want to see like the quick like off the rip reaction.
Sure.
And I think that that's a lot of his appeal. But as a result, he's not really well read on stuff. So in a debate setting, he crumbles. So I feel like part of the problem would be, if you guys did have a conversation, he might crumble over every issue. And then like that would just be it. Like he wouldn't give any pushback, and that would just be the entire conversation. And then like nothing really changes, right? Because it's just like he went from zero to like, you telling him a bunch of facts and whatever. But it's not really going to carry into like a like he's not incentivized to do that regularly on a stream, because that's not what people want. He's not going to like, fire up a he's not going to buy an Obsidian subscription and start researching this shit on a stream. Like it's just not going to happen,
Sure.
Which is unfortunate, I guess. But I still think he probably is. I mean, like relatively speaking, I feel like he's not that bad, and I feel like he probably would be receptive to whatever conversation you guys would have, even if maybe some of it would be, I don't know, getting bullied out of his positions. Yeah, it's unfortunate though. He's like my number one goat. I love him. I love his rats and shit. It's cool. Yeah, yeah. What else is going on with you? Anything interesting? Cool.
No, just chilling,
Just chilling. How's the media company going?
I'm trying to think of who I want. We're working on it.
Even in terms of like hosts or guests?
Yeah, what I want my first thing to be. We'll see.
Gotcha. I think that a big shortcoming of your stuff is that it's streamed, and I feel like videos do much better.
Yeah, but if I'm going to make like prepared
overall
videos, I mean, like my Bridges podcast is not streamed, but like if I'm going to do like prepared content, it just like takes away from obviously the stream time, right? And I'm already like stretched between a lot of different projects, so.
Yeah, I think what you would need is you would need somebody who like watches your streams, has access to your research documents, can like get that all, like it's just like a fucking terminally online person who watches your shit, and then can write it into a more condensable format. But I think video is much more like well constructed, condensed, entertaining, no fluff, no dead air, no dead space. Video is really, really good, especially when it's consistent. And I feel like that is a big part of just the messaging in general, that it could be really important for you. Because like, when you get into a streamer, like obviously you have a very loyal audience and your audience is growing. But like the raw amount of people that will flood into video content is like so much higher, it's so much higher, which is why, the biggest people online, like, let's say Mr. Beast, for example, right, is like 100 times, or not, maybe not 100, like 15 times as popular as the first biggest streamer in the world, because video content is just so much more consumable. And I think that is like, I think if you guys are doing a media company, I think that should be a major focus of what you're doing ultimately. And even like the way you do the streams and stuff like that, I feel like sometimes is not conducive to basically getting the most amount of eyes on it possible, because you do a lot of debates, which are obviously entertaining. You do a lot of like research stuff, which is obviously informative. But like Aswin Gold, for example, he's so big, and what he's big off of is reacting to other people's videos, and like criticizing it and shitting on it or agreeing with it. And I think that's probably something that you could do more often. That would probably make your channel blow up way more.
Yeah, I could. That's just
once again, help like, just spread farther.
Sure, that's just content I have not high interest in doing. Yeah, reaction stuff is not. I'm not as interested in it.
I mean, that's fair, but like if you find videos you're interested in reacting to, then it works. And on top of that, maybe it's not your favorite thing in the world, but like, the benefits I feel like outweigh the negatives. Like, so what? You got to like spend 2 hours a day watching.
So I like
videos that love doing.
Okay. Yeah, I don't want to not like streaming because I'm doing work. All right.
Well, isn't your goal to like help win the election or whatever?
Yeah, but it's not like my prime. I don't think if I were to start doing things I don't enjoy doing, I think I would just burn out and stop streaming. I think I would get miserable. Like I can put like almost every hour of my day towards like work related stuff right now, and I still enjoy it and it's still cool. But I think if I started to like schedule a whole bunch of shit that I was like dreading doing or didn't want to do, I think it would my mind, and I don't know if I'd be able to push on.
So are you totally averse to doing content that you're like just not that interested in or like excited about? Like, is that just not something you're willing to do?
Kind of, yeah. Although I try to find ways to nibble around the edges, but yeah, I try to maximize for my mental health.
Interesting. Your mental health.
As in, like, so that I'm like always excited and motivated to do stuff. I don't ever want to be in an area where I'm like, I don't know if I want to do this today, or like I'm worried what would happen. Yeah.
Why are you so worried about that? You don't think that like, I mean, not that you don't treat it like a job, but like treating some things like, okay, well, I don't really love doing this, but I kind of have to do it. Like, you don't think that could benefit you in the long run by just like increasing your reach and output? And then like if you have one,
I mean, everything would increase my
stuff you want to do
reach and output always, right? Like there's always things I can do to increase my reach and output. It's not a matter of that, it's a matter of balancing it. I mean it could. I don't know. I've been doing this for 14 15 years and I still am like super high mental functioning on it. I don't know how many content creators you talk to that have been in it for a while, but it seems like if you talk to any older streamer, like all of them fucking hate it. Like they'll all tell you like, God, I hate streaming, but I have to do it. But like they all hate it now. Like,
is that real?
Yes. Maybe not for the younger people, maybe not for the YouTubers, but on the streamer side, absolutely, yeah, they all say shit like that. So yeah.
So what, they just do it because they're like a slave to it because like
yeah,
they can't quit.
Yeah, know their marketable skills, and it looks like it's easy money. So yeah.
That's, geez, that's fucking sad. Really? Like, I guess I'm curious. I'll try to take your word for it. Do you have any like big examples I could maybe
out
be
people, but like
familiar
you
with?
can go talk to people, and then, hey, maybe you'll find out I'm wrong. But like anybody from any of the large orgs I've talked to, a lot of other streamer friends I've had in the past, yeah, they're pretty like super burned out on streaming. A lot of them started to hate it. Maybe most of them have quit. I'm not sure, but like yeah, you can go ask big streamers and come back and tell me. Yeah,
I don't think I don't think it's as easy to talk to big streamers as you think, but
you're a big YouTuber. What do you mean?
I feel like a lot of streamers are kind of insulated on Twitch. They
Maybe
don't
like
really
even
get to
yeah,
talk
even
to
Asmongold
YouTubers.
that you're bringing up, right? Like he streams on a second channel because he's quit streaming like 5 times, right? Like because he gets like burned out.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true. But like I don't think would have a conversation with me if I wanted. I think a lot of streamers are wary of commentary channels in general.
Oh no, I was just saying
because
it's an
they're getting
example of like
clips.
somebody burned out, not somebody you could talk to. But
That's true. But I mean, in fairness, burning out in the short term is not the same as like hating streaming. I mean, he must like it to some extent if he's still doing it, right? I mean, like, he's already got enough money, he could retire and jerk off for the rest of his life.
yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Okay, cool. All right. Well, thanks for the chat. Have a good stream, buddy.
I love you. Be careful, buddy.